Cindy sat in her friend's kitchen, silently shedding large tears onto the tablecloth. They were already finishing their third bottle of martini. "You know, Brenda, I'm really a complete fool. How could I ruin my entire life over a young jerk?" Brenda was her oldest and most loyal friend, one of the few who hadn't turned away from her after the grand scandal surrounding her divorce. They had been friends with their families for about 30 years, each having 3 children and a rich family history. "At least you realize it now. Better late than never," Brenda sympathetically consoled her friend. She understood Cindy well. At their age, it's hard to find something new and exciting. It's not easy to enjoy life and find new experiences when you're over 50. The story is as old as time: a bored middle-aged woman, a trip to Cyprus with a friend, a young lover, a scandal, and other attributes of a midlife crisis. Cindy's children had long since moved out. Her eldest son had his own family and children. Her youngest daughter Jennifer was soon to be married, and Tim had moved abroad to develop his business. They rarely came home and seldom called. Gradually, Cindy stopped taking care of herself. Her husband Brian had long lost interest in her. He was constantly busy at work. He was a good man who once loved and cared for her. She had never worked a day in her life and always lived in comfort, but for the past 10 years, they had just been cohabiting. Though she wasn't completely old yet, she wanted to live a little and have some fun. After her husband's death, Brenda's children gave her a trip to the sea for 2 weeks, and Brenda took her friend Cindy with her. The bright sun and cocktails helped ease the pain of loss a bit and regain composure. The friends lazed on the beach, took evening walks, and visited local restaurants. One evening, when Brenda stayed in the hotel room, Cindy decided to go out for a walk alone. That evening she met Brad. He was tall, handsome, smart, and 24 years younger than Cindy. Until the end of the trip, he showered her with flowers and compliments, making her glow with unexpected happiness. Brenda repeatedly warned her friend that nothing good would come of it, but Cindy joked that she just wanted to feel beautiful and young for a while. Perhaps nothing would have happened if Brad hadn't lived in the same city as them. About a month after returning home, Cindy, out of breath, burst into her friend's place and began muttering about Cyprus, Brad, and her husband. After catching her breath, Cindy explained that at a corporate event she attended with her husband, she met Brad. Brad was a colleague of Brian. Cindy and Brad pretended not to know each other and discreetly exchanged phone numbers. At first, they just talked on the phone and met in cafes a few times. Then came the flowers and compliments. Old feelings flared up like a fire. Her husband didn't immediately notice the changes in his wife. She lost weight again, started using makeup, and stayed out late in the evenings, often returning after midnight, sometimes with flowers and glowing eyes. She told her husband she was visiting friends, going to clubs of interest, or simply brushed off his questions. The conflict erupted instantly, as if it were the start of a bad joke. Brian returned home from a business trip a day earlier than expected. Entering the apartment, he heard strange sounds in the bedroom. He opened the door, hoping Cindy was loudly watching a movie with spicy scenes. But he was wrong. Cindy was with his young colleague in the bedroom. I think you all understand perfectly well that they were not playing chess in the bedroom. Surprisingly, Brian calmly asked what was going on, and Cindy just as calmly replied, "You can see for yourself." Brad got up from the bed, put on his pants, and left with the words, "Sorry, Brian." When Brian and Cindy were alone, she said she was leaving him, that she could no longer live with him, that he had neglected her, and that it was entirely his fault. Then she hastily packed her things, called her lover, and left to be with him. However, their happiness was short-lived. Brad turned out to be a selfish and petty person. When they started living together, the passion quickly faded. Brad even allowed himself to hit Cindy. Their relationship lasted only a few months. During the divorce process, Cindy cried and begged for forgiveness, but Brian was adamant. He was humiliated and deeply offended. He felt sorry for her, knowing they had lived together for many years, and perhaps he felt some guilt for no longer seeing her as a woman and taking her for granted. But the pain was too strong. A year later, Cindy sat in her old and only friend's kitchen, crying, her large tears falling onto the white tablecloth. She had become useless to anyone except her old friend Brenda.